Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our capstone session today on developing your AI roadmap. It has been a fantastic Moveworks.global once again this year. We've had a lot of great sessions, a lot of excitement for the product, some innovations there, as well as some great thought leadership as well. What we're going to focus on in this session is, as the session says, developing your AI roadmap. And I really like this topic. I think it's in many ways the sort of conclusion, the rightful conclusion to a lot of what we've been discussing today, because everything comes back to why, and why are we doing this? How do we get started? And so very excited just to hear from these speakers today as to how they've gotten their AI roadmaps going. I think there's a lot of great ideas from within this panel, within this group. So encourage your participation and your questions. But without further ado, we'll get started. So let me do some introductions here. Okay, so to my left we have Nicole Conroy. Nicole is a VP of Enterprise Applications at Hearst and leads the strategic oversight of enterprise applications, technical training, and end user support across the organization. She's been with Hearst for 14 years and with Moveworks for the last 6. So one of our very original customers. We're excited about that. Having first begun working with us in 2019, Nicole's expertise and focus is on leading digital transformation, initiatives that streamline operations and improve user engagement, as well as in driving business efficiency. So please join me in welcoming Nicole to the stage. Next, we have Derek Debe. Derek is Director of Experience and Innovation at AbbVie, and one of the world's largest biopharmaceutical companies. With 19 years of experience at AbbVie, he is recognized as an industry leader in delivering innovative technology, platforms, and services that enhance productivity and successes across the pharmaceutical enterprise. And AI is the latest mechanism, essentially, for doing so. And so Derek is focused on transitioning away from legacy work and focusing on enabling AbbVie to deliver increasingly complex solutions for the patients that they serve. So Derek, welcome. Next, we have Kashif. Kashif is a Senior Manager of AI Product Management at WEX. His work centers on building impactful products and scalable AI solutions that accelerate automation and unlock business value. Kashif's has been able to position Finn, the Moveworks AI assistant at WEX, as a core strategic asset, enabling smarter decision-making and increasingly delivering on tangible business outcomes, and has deep experience in a lot of areas in consulting and product development. And so Kashif has really excelled at turning AI into tangible business outcomes. So thank you for being here, Kashif. And last but not least, we have Brian Taylor. Brian's joining us from WEX also, where he leads multiple teams as a Senior Manager of AI and productivity, including an AI engineering team specializing in employee productivity solutions. You also provide leadership for Google Workspace and its administrators, and lots of course, good, cool things happening within AI and Google as well, with a focus on driving productivity through AI and platform optimization. So thank you so much, Brian. Fantastic. I wanted to start just by going down the line and kind of sharing some introductory thoughts. Again, the AI roadmap is in many ways the why we do what we do. It's the starting point for how you have all thought through your own journey, whether it's with Moveworks or with other AI technologies. And so, Nicole, I'd like to just start with you. What does an AI roadmap mean to you at Hearst, and how do you sort of think through the planning and the execution on that?
That's a really big question. I guess the way that we are tackling it at Hearst, so for those of you who don't know Hearst is a diversified information services company. We have deep roots in media, but we're also in the financial services industry, we're in the healthcare industry, we're in the transportation industry. We're diversified. And when we acquire companies, they kind of do their own thing, and there's no requirement to standardize. So that's a great opportunity to leverage AI to take care of all of those unique situations that are throughout the business. What we've led with in terms of an AI roadmap is starting with what are the problems? What are the opportunities that we see throughout the organization? And plotting out a roadmap to say, okay, is AI the right tool to help us get this done? That way, we're not just applying technology for the sake of applying technology. That paired with business cases and ROI and the employee experience kind of all comes together to this great mixture to determine, do we use AI? Do we use another piece of technology? Do we use humans? Like, everything's on the table essentially. But to answer your question, when we plot out all of, from Moveworks, for example, plot out all the business cases, now we have to execute on it, right? So then we kind of go through and make those use cases, make the ROI business case, pilot with the end users, and map that along the way. So we're 6 years into the journey, and the roadmap, there's no end in sight right now. So it's a good thing, I guess.
Yeah, constant iteration.
Mhm.
Derek, I know that you guys started your journey with Moveworks a couple of years back, but AI had been on your mind for a while. You want to tell us kind of how that's evolved for you over the last few years and within AbbVie?
Sure. Yeah. So yes, we rolled out about 2 years ago. HR, help desk, and IT at the same time. Really good buy-in almost immediately. We had like square wave adoption. It was just really quick. So my team did a great job. We worked as a vendor, did a great job in the whole process, and so yeah, we were very excited about that. And then in terms of roadmap, to me, what that means is, gosh, we got one part of it, solved, at least to the well beyond the 80% of the 80-20 rule, right? And thank God, because pharmaceutical companies are absolutely enormous, and there's all these functional areas that we have to really start working on to deliver value. So if you look at our overall roadmap, it's pretty complex. Moveworks plays a role, but then, as you can imagine, then it's a lot of thinking about how does the business segment out? And what are their existing cornerstone systems, and how could AI benefit those as well? And it's rather complex. We have large build efforts. We've added some recent expertise at the VP level in the deal making space, even because in our space there's even you read about companies that are getting more and more adept at AI for drug discovery and clinical trials and things like that. So we're even expecting that there may be acquisition in that area as well. So it's right now it's a big, reasonably high functioning team, I guess, just given all the uncertainties that are out there. And yeah, to your point, then building an ROI case for these, which in some cases is reasonably straightforward. Hard savings are always the best, and soft savings. But then in the drug discovery world, drug discovery is a moonshot, right? It doesn't work that often, right? So anything that could potentially in the AI world move you from industry standards of 9 to 12% probability of success to 15 to 20, the executives are all definitely very interested in understanding those potentials and adopting any of that very quickly.
Amazing. Kashif and Brian, I know that you both have taken on a role in developing the roadmap within WEX. Would you care to tell us just, again, I guess we'll start with you, Kashif. What does a roadmap mean to you? Why is it important for you to have one?
To me, an AI roadmap would be something that is a blueprint for us. It helps us connect technology with real-world customer problems. It could be internal customers, it could be external customers, but the idea is that it helps us define what is something that we're solving. Is it something that is meaningful for our customers? Is it something that goes a step beyond the daily use cases that we address? And then we also look at, for a roadmap, what is the partnership and collaboration with our different partners? Is it something that we are aligned with technology? In this case, Brian and I worked very closely on the Fin roadmap, which is our employee co-pilot. Are we aligned with our commercial teams? Do we have the buy-in from our design teams? It's something that we bring a different group of people together, all aligned on a common goal, and then we come together and see, is this something that makes strategic sense? Is this something that solves our company's goals? That's how I would say we define our AI roadmap.
Awesome. Brian, anything to add to that?
Sure, yeah. First, thank you for inviting us here, and it's nice to see everyone so excited about roadmaps. If you don't know a lot about WEX, too, I'd just say we're a B2B fintech company. We service 800,000 customers globally. A lot of our technology is kind of behind the scenes. But in the healthcare space, if you think about FSAs or HSAs, we have a considerable amount of business in that space, also fleet mobility and corporate payments. So just helping customers pay and get paid. Probably a lot of common themes from the group, so I'll try not to be repetitive, but I think about 3 characteristics of a good roadmap. So one would be deeply contextualized, meaning like you have done the hard work to really understand the business, meet your business where it is at, right? Because they're all in different places, right? And have understood what the key problem areas are you want to focus on. So it's, in that sense, not a derivative. It's not a, hey, ChatGPT, build my roadmap, please. Copy, paste. So there's definitely an effort involved there. And I think that effort means the probability of success is much higher for you and your organization. Second characteristic, I would say, is that it is immediately actionable. So you should see value within the first 3 months, hopefully sooner than that. But you're prioritizing things, you can quickly see results. That builds momentum, over the long term as well. And the third area I would say is highly adaptable. IT was already at an incredible pace of change, and now it is even faster, in the last couple of years. I feel like I read a novel every single day, just trying to keep up with the changes in the AI space. And so things change rapidly. The thing you're working on yesterday, you may have to shift. The strategy is still the same, right, in terms of employee experience or productivity gains or whatever it is you're trying to achieve. But like how you get there, will certainly change quite frequently as you move along.
I think the interplay between strategy and roadmap, which you call it there, is so crucial because, to your point, and Nicole, you mentioned this as well, the roadmap's interminable. It will keep going on, and there's new ways to achieve that. But the strategy has certain pillars that you and your organizations are trying to accomplish. So I think we started from sort of first principles. Let's hear a little bit more about your specific roadmaps as well. So Nicole, we'll go to you. I know that you have put together a pretty comprehensive view of what you were trying to accomplish with your AI roadmap. We've talked about the 3-1-1 strategy, which might mean something to this audience. Maybe you want to explain that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can't take credit for putting the strategy together. Dave and the entire team did an excellent job. I just am the biggest cheerleader. Our leadership and our team is taking the approach. I don't know if anybody here is from the New York area, but in New York City, in New York, there's if you have a problem with anything, you can pick up the phone and call 311. If it's a pothole, if you have a problem with your landlord, if you're having an issue with your employer, it's all the different city services are connected through this 311 service. So we're kind of ripping off the New York City strategy, and we're going to try to make her be the 311 of Hearst. So you've heard this earlier in the keynotes where it's one agent interfacing with the users. And then behind the scenes, the agent is interacting with a bunch of other agents native to the application or what have you. So we're implementing that to make it more relatable to our employees. When we say 311, we get more buy-in from end users. They immediately know what we're talking about. And they're like, oh, I understand, versus this nebulous AI strategy. And people are like, yeah, we understand. They don't really know. So this kind of grounds them in, oh, I understand. When I have a problem, I call 311. So we're leading with that. In terms of the strategy changing, I think Brian mentioned this. So we started with like productivity and efficiency gains, and the strategy has evolved over time. And of course, we're still focused on ROI and business case. But a lot of the focus now is on the experience for the users because it's overwhelming with the proliferation of all of these AI agents everywhere. So that kind of grounds us in that 311 vision as well. So it's kind of coming from leadership, it's coming from our team and the support perspective and efficiency, but then also from the end users. So that kind of helps to propel the strategy forward, getting that buy-in, which was mentioned earlier in terms of winning people over.
Yeah, absolutely. So start the basic principle being go to the bot or the assistant at this point for anything, any support types of issues, and that becomes key to a better service experience, better employee experience, et cetera. All the major goals that you're trying to accomplish.
Right. And I should say we started with IT, and that's where we really got the traction and the momentum. But since then, we've broken out. We're in finance. We're moving into HR. We have some facilities on the table. We're working with our different business units. So our television division just launched a new knowledge base that we're now accessing last week. So we're also branching out in terms of content. So it's literally, we want to get to the place where if you have any question, think about a new hire joining your organization. Do you have a question about benefits? Do you have a question about hardware? Do you have a question about your direct deposit? Anything, just go to Herbie and Herbie will do all the work and get you to the right place.
Amazing. Derek, similarly, I think you guys have articulated a pretty good and detailed vision, not just for Ava within AbbVie, but for other technologies as well. You want to?
Yeah.
Is productivity, would you say, a major driver for you all as well, or what are the specific elements that you're looking to accomplish?
Yeah, I would say productivity, and then, as I mentioned, anything that could presumably change the probability of success, right? So on the science side, that's a big effort. On the research side, then as you get into clinical trials, it's like how fast can we populate these trials? How fast can we transact? And then as you get later and later, it's all more transactional. We do have cases where some constituencies are getting very well served. I mean, AbbVie's got quite a few resources. So for example, AbbVie Commercial, they have built a bespoke system for planning for the salesperson to Sunday night say, hey, which doctors do I really need to visit, right? Because the scripts are down compared to a competitor stuff, right? So a lot of what we kind of saw agentic this morning and some of those examples, they've built a system for that constituency, and that vertical seems like they're quite well served. So we certainly want to get as much into a single interface as possible, but I think we do have these other cases where they emerged as such a strong and important use case that we've built a vertical, and obviously then eventually the tech will be there to merge it all and put security over it. But right now we're treating those a little bit as separate constituencies. One of the things I'm seeing is I think the Moveworks one in particular, though, it's gonna be like the utility infielder of all of the world. It already sits on some of the big enterprise areas. To your point, we've worked up knowledge from a lot of areas of the business, and now there's going to be a demand to start to get agentic with each of those areas. One thing I think will be interesting, and I think some of you have maybe seen Sabina from our team speak. She did just a wonderful job activating executives and activating the governance and all that. And we still have all that in place, right? So we're still talking to the VPs about everything that's been done and all the great statistics. But now it is going to pivot, and we're going to have to kind of think about how do we really operate more deeply in these organizations and go just beyond knowledge ingestion, right? To actually getting agentic with each of these different areas. And like I said, the overall roadmap has already called for certain areas like sales function where people's jobs are so distinctly different than whatever. I mean, they don't even have laptops, for example, right? So they're totally different from an experience perspective. So they're served, but I do think like the Moveworks layer, already starting with so many users and things like that, will be this layer where a lot of that needs to get done for our organization.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Kash, if you talk about business requirements and making sure that roadmap is tailored to business requirements, and at the heart of what we're discussing now is the specifics of your roadmap. Why did you choose what you chose, right? And why are you focusing on those things? Do you maybe want to comment on the elements of your roadmap that you're focusing on this year, for example, and how do you select those priorities as opposed to other things that you might be focused on?
Sure. So when I look at the Fin roadmap and even the other AI products that I'm leading, it all comes down to its intentionality. How can we make sure like the product decisions we're making, the tech decisions we're making, they're not reactive to an evolving landscape. It's something that we intentionally want to accomplish this year. It is something that ties to our business goals. And the way I see it is there are 3 different pillars that we try to adhere to. The first one is data maturity. The use cases and the products that we are building, is the data that's needed for these AI products, is it mature? Is it governed? If it's not, do we have partnership with the right teams to make sure that we have the right data available for AI ingestion? The second one would be the user experience. Have we defined the personas? Have we defined what are the key motivations of an internal employee versus an external customer? We have customers in different industries. So have we thought about like what are the pain points and motivations of, say, a driver versus someone who's trying to pay a bill online in a B2B environment? Even internally, being a remote-first company, we have looked and mapped out how does an experience for someone who's remote change from someone who's in the office? Do they have someone to tap on the shoulder? Can Fin be that tool that can be the tool that can enable them to answer those questions when they need them the most? And then finally, I also look at design. How can we incorporate user-centric design? How do we meet the users where they are? With external customers, it's about meeting them where their business is so that we can enable them. But for internal customers, can we go a step beyond just knowledge? Can we provide them with proactive notifications? Is it something that if someone's going on a sales meeting, can we provide them with the right insights from different tools, disparate tools, bring it together in an actionable insight at the right time so they can have a more meaningful conversation with our customers? That's how I see when I look at any of the products that we have in our backlog. For the roadmap, these are the three key pillars that we try to adhere to.
Yeah, fantastic. A lot of elements, a lot of different things that you can do there. At the end of the day, you do have to determine, right, what's worth doing or what's worth doing first. And there's a process of who's involved in making that decision and putting all this together. So Brian, I'm curious for your thoughts on the people component of this. There's lots of things that you can do, but putting together a roadmap involves, I think, a pretty rigorous process of evaluation and consultation and so forth. So how have you found that that's worked best for you all at WEX to incorporate inputs from various sources to get to a defined outcome?
Yeah, I go back to those characteristics I was talking about before about being deeply contextualized and immediately actionable roadmap and highly adaptable. I think when we initially started out with Moveworks 3 years ago, we focused on IT, and it was immediately actionable. So we probably met one out of the three. And then, that was before ChatGPT took the world by storm. And then we had Copilot come out with Moveworks. So we had to adapt and really change our strategy. And I did not have the resources to accomplish that within my team. And I'm sure that's something all of you face within your organization as far as talent and skill and resources to do the things that you want to do. So WEX was no different in this regard. I think the cool thing and the reason why I wanted to make sure Kashif was here with me as well is so I'm on the tech side. Kashif is on our digital or product side of WEX. And so we actually formed a partnership, a collaboration. I think one of the earliest examples of its kind actually within WEX. And it was that moment that we started to say, well, look, the product team has all the skills to do, UX designers, talk to the team, or do investigations with users, build the personas, and so forth. That's skill set and capacity I did not have on the tech side. And so it was us coming together and solving that resource gap in a collaborative way that helped take the roadmap to kind of another level. And so wanted to make sure that Kashif was along here as well, and that's why there's two of us. If you were like, why are there two WEX people here? That's why. So it was a true partnership.
Amazing. One of the, I think, really fascinating things about this technology is that it's is giving birth to these new forms of collaboration in order to deliver the results that we're looking for. So whether it's bringing together new partnerships or standing up new governance committees or things of that nature. I know we had governance session as well today. Making sure that the team is built to purpose, essentially, to be able to support the outcomes that you're striving for. So I want to come back to that in a second, but we've put together a roadmap, basic principles that you're trying to accomplish and certain objectives that you're trying to hit as well. How do you assess and continually determine that you're on the right track? Basically, I'm curious, how do you sort of periodically come back, refocus, and make sure that you're delivering on the goals and objectives that you need to?
Yeah, it's continuous for us. So I'm uniquely positioned in that I have oversight over the product owners of Herbie, so the technical development of Herbie, as well as a user-focused technical training user experience function. And both talk to the businesses and the stakeholders in different capacities. And what we've established is a continual service improvement loop to ensure that if we're getting calls to the service desk, or if we're getting feedback through Herbie, or if we're getting, thumbs up or thumbs down, we're following up and understanding what's the meaning behind that. We're conducting heuristic studies, and the user experience team is talking to the users. Once we have the idea for the roadmap item, it'll go through that continual service improvement cycle to ensure that these teams are all talking to each other. So it sounds nice and pretty, but there's oftentimes disagreement or questions, or it's a really productive, real conversation around the work that we're doing and the tasks that we're taking on. That also is where not just feedback, but actual data is brought up. So there's constant measurement. We report to the businesses every week in terms of Herbie interactions, positive, constructive, opportunities, mean time to resolution. There's a lot of data that comes with these types of tools, specifically with Moveworks. And we want to make sure to incorporate that into the feedback and continual service improvement cycle as well, so that we're not making decisions in a vacuum and this is what IT wants. No, there's user, there's data, there's, what problems are we seeing on a regular basis? What new problems are coming? What positive enhancements do we want to make to the business? But it's a tight circle of really, really smart, talented people. So that's what's been working for us for a while. It didn't start out that way though, but we got into a good rhythm over time.
Interesting. Derek, how do you tell the story about what Ava's doing? And the success metrics, I think, is interesting as well.
Yeah.
To Nicole's point, that evolves over time. In your case, I'm curious how much of it was starting with maybe some metrics in mind of things that you knew you wanted to work toward to demonstrate, versus maybe organically, as you work with the solution, you identify what some of those metrics are.
Yeah. Well, we promised hard savings ahead of time, even to run the Moveworks/Ava project, right? And we've realized that now, which is good. And so, and yes, continuing to tell the story from user metrics standpoint, user satisfaction standpoint. Our version, people got a whole lot more chatty with it, when we released the newer Moveworks version, right? So that was good. We saw a big bump and everybody's making friends with Ava. So that was good. So it continues, those stories continue to be solid and continue to be told. And yeah, my boss just asked for Sabina and I for 4 slides, justifying its existence just on Friday, right? So yeah, we sort of continuously tell that story. I do think, yeah, we're kind of at a new dawn then of a really good art of the possible deck then, as we start to dig down into these functional areas even deeper, right, beyond knowledge and this agentic world. So whoever has a fantastic art of the possible deck with agentic, it's good. I mean, the great thing about this revolution is largely the execs know what's going on, right? I mean, we'll have an exec say, I use Perplexity in my free time all the time. How come you're not quite there yet, right? And so, since the consumer side is pretty good, right? Maybe not the Alexas and that kind of stuff, which are a generation behind, but they're all out there using the stuff. And I think, so generally, I think they have an idea that even if it's soft, that it's productivity. But you'll get the people that grumble about that justification for projects. But luckily, I mean, drug discovery and progression, it's a very knowledge-based, in knowledge and data-driven industry. So you can justify those kinds of things.
Yeah, excellent. WEX team, how do you assess that you're on the right track over time?
So as a product manager, one of the things that I do when I log in on my computer every morning is first look at the metrics. I look at the Moveworks analytics dashboard, but I also look at what is the general feedback that I'm getting from my customers. If we have a recent release, how have our users interacted with that? And then I really want to focus on is beyond the power users. What about the average users who are maybe intimidated by technology, or someone who's not aware about the capabilities of these AI solutions? How do we reach out to them and how do we solve for their problems? So one way we do that is we have an innovative cycle wherein, like Brian mentioned, in collaboration with tech, we build a small team whose goal is to identify these use cases and then come up with assumptions that they could validate in short focus sprints. These are 1 to 2 week incremental sprints where we have an assumption, we run them through, we have some alpha users who give us the feedback on that new capability or that feature, and then we incorporate those learnings as part of a broader development cycle. And we continuously do that so that over time we can be more inclusive in our efforts and we can capture the needs of the majority of our users. That's more on the internal side. When it comes to the external products, we spend a lot of time talking to our commercial teams. They have a pulse of what our customers really want. They have been in the industry for decades. They understand what is something that's coming up in the industry, what is something that our competitors are doing, and how can we build products that meet our customers' needs, and even beyond that, something that exceeds their customers' needs and meets them where they are.
Has anyone figured out how to objectively measure productivity? If you have, please share. So our main goal wasn't productivity, although that was definitely part of the mix, but it was more employee experience. And so having the survey that randomly goes out so we can see kind of our overall score, happy face, smiley face, sad face score, has been really great to see and just been consistently at a very high level. And so we know our users, we get that feedback, regularly, which is great. And we're still trying to figure out that holy grail of measuring the actual productivity gains, but we come up with our best estimate. It's important to have that, I think, and measure that. But if anybody has the secret sauce, please.
I struggle with being able to use the experience one because we have so many legacy systems that are terrible, but the people who did them think they're fabulous, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And so they look at ours like, well, this is no different than what we did. Like, it is.
Yes, it's true.
You're not alone.
Right, ways to measure this. Brian, I do recall one of the things that that your team had shared with us when we were visiting with you recently was that you look at deployments of these types of solutions, and I think we determined that Moveworks received some of the highest scores, I think, behind just GitHub Copilot in your organization for utilization, I believe, and reaction from the users. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Like we have very strong adoption across the enterprise for Fin, and when people interact with Fin, they rate that experience very highly. So they love getting the knowledge from it. And then, I think now that agentic architecture is out in the ether, that's really the next level, right? Is taking the actions. And so we have a little bit of that right now, but I think that's really going to change the employee experience significantly in the near future.
Yeah, very good.
Mm-hmm.
So these roadmaps are excellent. They give us a path forward in order to deliver the value that our organizations need. At the end of the day, they come down to execution, and we need to make sure that we have the right people and the right skills in-house to be able to drive the outcomes that we're looking for. Derek, I'd actually like to mix things up a little bit. I'd like to start with you on that because I know that the AbbVie team has evolved over time, and you've brought in different folks based on the needs of what you thought you needed to deliver. So how do you find and determine what the skills are to be able to deliver on that roadmap?
Yeah, I mean, I might be an outlier, but I still think knowing the business, being able to interact with the business is really, really important, right? I mean, people are slinging less and less basic code every day, right? So I like a lot of people that really, really are, let's face it, it's not that fun sometimes to go out and try and learn somebody's business, and it can be pretty intimidating, right? So we've erred on the side, I think, of having quite a bit of talent in that regard. Now I do have a user-centered design group, and of course, so you have naturally people that thrive on doing that, like going and doing research, but. So yeah, I tended to err on the side of that, or I think even our developers are pretty comfortable, picking up the phone, talking with the business units, and even well beyond IT and HR, and conversing about what their problems are, and hopefully that will serve us well. But that might not be a very popular opinion. But like I said, when we look at your solutions, and you guys are trying to wrap it up and productize it, make it as easy as possible. And so that to me signals, okay, make sure we know the business, and we got to have a few people that really know how to sling the code. But we don't need a zillion, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Nicole, how important has that been for you as you think about your roadmap and what you need to execute? How important is it to sort of understand the skills that you have or that you need in order to sort of position what you want to accomplish within?
It's hugely important. Like we talked about before, when you plot the different use cases along your roadmap, some may require different skill sets than others. So then you evaluate your staff and understand where there may be not just the current skill set, but the drive to learn new skills, the interest, the knowledge of the business is hugely important, like you mentioned, staying current, making sure that we get them the training that they need, all the basics of when you introduce something new. We also leverage the business sometimes to test, and sometimes they'll raise their hand and get involved. So it's not just a purely IT conversation. And then, the answer that I think everybody, when there's budget and there's time, we'll leverage partners if we need to augment our team. If we can accelerate, offload some of the work, have our team focus on the business type work, and then have the partner focus on slinging the code, like you mentioned, or building something quickly. That's always an option on the table as well, given the scenario. But I think it really comes down to, what are we trying to drive with this piece of functionality, with this new use case, with this new business? And then look around to say, okay, who's going to help us get there the most efficiently, the most productive, to determine what the best end result is. Yeah.
Okay. Wex team, again, I know that go to the business, we get the feedback. That's been kind of a continual theme here, but how does that feedback influence the skill sets and whatnot that you bring to the table to deliver on these?
I'll add that when we started 3 years ago, strategically, it just made sense because we were focusing on IT to have Moveworks embedded into our IT service management team. That's probably pretty typical, I would imagine, implementation. But that changed pretty quickly. Like in about a year and a half, the market was really starting to shift, and we changed kind of our the way we approach the roadmap. But from a skill set perspective, we also realized that we needed an AI engineer that could help with rapid experimentation, because things were just changing so fast. And we needed to learn, like what are these new tools doing? Like, how can we leverage these in our environment? And so we did make that investment. So we didn't just ramp up and spend $200,000 and then not achieve any results, kind of thing. It was a very deliberate, focused, every year let's do a little bit more. And so last year was an investment in an AI engineer, and we just actually added another early career position as well, which is awesome. And so we're just slowly kind of building at the team, and so at the pace at which we're learning, right? And so as we learn more and figure things out, and then we're just kind of moving with that. But it definitely has been quite a skill shift in the last couple of years.
I would add that from an employee upskilling level, we did hire a lot of new people, but we also wanted to look at our existing employees. How can we upskill them and give them the right trainings, the tools, so that they can use these tools? As a product manager, when I'm hiring new product managers, I'm not looking for AI product managers. I'm looking for product managers who understand AI, who are able to have these conversations with the tech team, who are able to understand how these use cases require AI or if they do not require AI. So that was one of the focuses. But beyond that, org-wide, we launched a program called as an AI Accelerators, in which we selected 100 people across the organization from different teams. We provided them with the right tools. We provided them with access to Gemini. We gave them more coaching on Finn, our chatbot. And then over time, we had these people share their learnings with the teams. Now, as a second phase of this program, we have expanded it to a larger group of people. And each of the early participants in the program are now mentors to these newer members. And over time, we are hoping that this becomes democratized. People start experimenting with these tools, share those learnings, and then gradually build out this program for the entire organization.
Fantastic. I guess we'll conclude with just lessons learned for those who may be just getting their roadmap started or are thinking through the basics of putting this together. What have you all learned through this process that you would impart, either as a first principle or as maybe something that a mistake you made or learned along the way? So Brian, we could start down on your end. We'll work our way down.
Oh, mixing it up. All right. Yeah, so I guess I kind of go back to those 3 core characteristics and that I mentioned earlier, and just being deeply contextualized, immediately actionable, and highly adaptable. But I guess through the process, the learning would be just the people, the 3-legged stool or whatever, the people, process, technology of everything, right? The people side of this in this AI era seems to be more and more important, in that identifying people that are really passionate about the space within your organization, and then getting them engaged, and then removing as many barriers as you can so that they can be innovative, I think is just really, really important. I was surprised in terms of the adoption curve, post ChatGPT and everything. I thought it was going to explode, right? And everybody was going to be using this tool, and who wouldn't be using it, right? And that was not the case, right? There is a learning curve, and we're just now, I think, kind of crossing that chasm into the, that early majority phase, and within WEX and the use of AI more broadly. But I think just, again, kind of going back to the AI accelerators that Kashif was mentioning, is like identifying those that are the early adopters, really giving them everything they need, and help kind of increase that knowledge within your organization.
Gotcha.
If there's one key takeaway that I would want to give to everyone, it would be focus on the customer experience. Ultimately, it's all about like real customers, real problems. They might be internal users, they might be external customers. That's where the focus is. When you're thinking about AI solutions, and if this is something that your team is just about to get started on, instead of going broad, go deep on one use case. Pick up a use case, take it through a cycle. Like Brad mentioned, engage the people who are highly motivated on that. Use that as your testing ground. Like that's how you explore. How does my architecture meet the need? Do we have the right data? Do we have the right solution? Do we have the right partnerships with our tech teams and our other collaborators? Is there a governance process? And then secondly, it would be about building trust with the customers. If the customers do not trust your product, they're not going to adopt those features. So to do that, if you are using AI, let them know that AI is part of the decision-making process. This is how we use this. Do you have any feedback? If they do have feedback, iteratively incorporate that feedback. And that's how, over time, you'll build trust with the customers, you'll build a higher base of engaging customers, and you'll understand your organizational capability to scale. That gives you an idea of like how do you proceed forward with building an org-wide roadmap.
I'll be brutally honest, just in case anybody else has suffered some of the same stuff. It's really hard to have like an overarching strategy and to have IT really agree on this, right? I mean, it's like, we all realize this is one of the bigger revolutions, possibly the biggest revolution in our career, right? And so getting the buy people and the build people and all these different perspectives, from the architects versus the product owners versus the more experience-driven people, it's a whoa, crazy melting pot. I'm not saying, I don't think I really have all the answers, but it's got to be hurting a lot of organizations in terms of their forward velocity. I'm glad we got in pretty early in the revolution with Moveworks, and we're able to put a pretty nice shot on goal for the organization. And I hope, as we move down the agentic path, it won't be as difficult or as challenging as some of what's come to pass already. But who knows? I mean, it's only getting more complex, and the opinions more varied. And we're pre-standards in a lot of this stuff too, which I think makes it really, really, really difficult as well. So anyway, if anybody else has felt some of those same battle scars and political scars and that kind of stuff, I feel for you. We can have a drink together in the other room.
Me too.
Yeah.
So agree with everything everybody already said, and I guess I'll bring us home by bringing us back to basics. So have a good business case, a good opportunity to tackle, and also be flexible, because we started this journey in 2019 and a lot has changed since then. It's been 6 years and a lot's changed, especially in this space. Now magnify that towards like everything in IT. But we always have a good business case to what we're going to tackle, and then we're flexible on how we're going to tackle it. So I guess always, when in doubt, just always go back to basics.
Amazing. Perfect segue and kind of perfect conclusion on the whole topic of strategy and roadmap. And from everything that we've heard today, really extracting it and bringing it back to why do we do what we do, and building that business case, as you say. So fantastic. Want to open it up for any questions from the audience? I think we've got a couple of folks with microphones, so if we can circulate around.
Quick question for you, Derek. I mean, being in pharma, especially, I could see Ava handling structured data for you guys. Wonderful. But like, I'm pretty sure in pharma, especially with R&D, you have a lot of unstructured stuff all over the place, right? So does your roadmap include any kind of custom LLMs to handle the unstructured data, especially because most likely you guys probably want to keep it proprietary and private. So I'm just wondering, do you have any future roadmaps for that?
Yeah. So it sort of depends on how big the constituency we're serving. I guess that's kind of what I got at with Moveworks, definitely sort of playing the utility infielder across everything we do. So if it's like sort of like standards and policies and things like that, where a large group of people would want to get at it, I think that's going to go the Moveworks route. But definitely what we see developing is bespoke systems then, to make like all the people in medical writing much more effective at their jobs, right? And those are going to be, and they're already emerging as, RAG models that know all that unstructured really well and can recall that, right? Really well, right? Because by the time you get the drug going off to the FDA, that's like 12 years have passed, right? So if we can come up with really good systems that'll enable those people to recall rather than the downstream people to recall very quickly rather than the hunt and peck that they've been doing, even if they have a knowledge management system or something like that, it's just night and day. So these are building, there's really good bespoke stuff that's being built to support those constituencies as needed, because they can be pretty big, right? You could have a whole big group of medical writers, a whole big group of whatever along the pipeline. It needs to be 1,000 people, 2,000 people that are just been much more effective. So you're absolutely right. There's functional or vertical solutions that are emerging. And at this point, it could even be a whole interface, right? Because some of those people then need to take all that and craft new content or want that content, instantly summarized in a way that it's almost ready for just their review, and then it goes on to the next step and things like that. Did that answer that? Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure.
I can just add on, like we have some bespoke solutions too, where like a team that has dealt with a legacy system, right? And so every time they have to bring someone and train them, it is just like understanding what's in this code, right? And so they built, their own graph database and LLM so they can interact, with that code base and that knowledge base. And then it was, now we can connect that, that's great, that's there. We can just connect that up to Finn, right? And then our bot, right? And so the more, it doesn't squash creativity, I guess, or innovation. People can still do these bespoke things, whether it's, whatever data that they're working with, but then you can connect it up in a secure way.
It's interesting, where did I hear that podcast, the Adobe founder? And he actually sees a vision where the whole world's going to go back to layers, right? So obviously we're all super fired up about conversational interfaces now, and I think they'll play a major role. But then you could imagine like even the agentic world being launched then from what is much more like a layered or Photoshop interface then as well, where these things are all, there's just many commands that all come together in one spot. So that's an interesting counterpoint, and I would say, maybe some of these bespoke systems, we kind of have this intuition, gosh, these people are going to need something bespoke, but eventually maybe they're going to even have something as complex as Adobe Illustrator, and they're just going to be super duper powerful, and everything they need is just at their fingertips. So who knows where it's going to go?
Howdy. Question. So I really enjoyed everything about strategy. Obviously, there's vision. Then there's a strategy that you have to reach that vision. But there's been a recent article with the Harvard Business Review stating that, and I'm paraphrasing, so like 30% of managers in the industry actually understand and use AI, that can understand that link, with only 15% of leadership that actually know it. So obviously there's a gap with all companies. So my direct question is, we're talking about strategy. What have y'all done to fill that gap or try to help that? I know, Kaushik, you mentioned that you're empowering your, you don't need to push anybody if curiosity pulls them. So you gave your employees that opportunity to learn Gemini, expose them to that, right? To help mentor the mentors or whatnot. So my question is, what have y'all done and the challenges to try to fill that void, that gap, so you can create a better strategy that's adaptable and the like, and flexible? The end.
Personally or for the business?
General question, like to fill that gap, to create that strategy, right?
Yeah, so I can do my,
No, please.
Okay,
Well, first,
so-
I do have something to say. Yeah.
we've gotten a lot of direction from the board and senior, like our C-suite at Hearst, around leveraging AI and using AI, and our I guess, response in terms of, I'm trying to be politically correct here, to closing that gap is around education at every level in the organization. So we did get the support and funding from that C-suite and the board to offer every single employee real-time, synchronous, facilitated training around the basic concepts of artificial intelligence, generative AI, and just the different components that make up this technology, the strategy around it, and what is an LLM, all of that. In addition to that, so that would kind of be like a top-down, everybody can take this training type thing. But from there, we have a corporate university, a corporate technical university called Hearst Tech Academy. And a part of that is community-led groups of like-minded individuals that are focused on a specific technology. So we have a cloud innovator community. We have a UX guild. We now have an AI champions group. That's all different levels of the organization with all different experience with AI. And they're teaching each other and sharing articles. And so there's that organic conversation, which at a disparate company with people in different industries, that's really rich for them to be able, because otherwise there's no need for them to interact with each other. Someone from healthcare is talking to potentially like a ranch hand that's a cowboy, right? That's working on the ranch, the Hearst ranch. And they're in the same virtual room sharing best practices or current events. So there's been a lot of initiatives in terms of education, but the thing that resonates, I think, most that we're hearing from people to kind of close that gap, like you mentioned, is the knowledge sharing across individuals at every level of the organization. The chief product AI strategist is in that call as well as that cowboy, right? That works at the Hearst Ranch here in California. So it's diversified, which is kind of cool.
Since you focused on executives, so AbbVie actually last November had a summit, an AI summit. This was way above my pay grade. I mean, there were essentially half of the executive leadership team members there. The CEO wasn't there, but half of his reports were there, and about half of the top 100 leaders were all there. So to your point, like getting the executives really, really thinking about what they can do with AI. So there I had Ava, we had a poster. We were in back and we had a poster. Any of these more vertical efforts in AI to date, right? They had posters and the executives got a chance to wander through. I will say in pharma, I mean, their perspective again is much more on making sure that if anything's going to move that probability of success, they via AI or generalized AI, they're going to want to know it very, 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 very quickly. So I think at that level, at the highest echelons of the company, they're thinking much more in terms of what's going to shift the probability of success than just greater efficiencies for everybody. But then as you get down, of course, just the efficiency of everybody gets much more important then as well. But so AbbVie did take what I thought were some pretty interesting steps, well above my pay grade, to get this figured out and to get them excited. And 5 major use cases actually then came out of that are some cornerstone use cases that are being looked at. ROIs closely evaluated, delivery, closely monitored and looked at, for example.
A lot of parallels.
Yep.
It's kind of a multifaceted approach, but it's definitely based in education and enablement. We did director and above level mandatory training that was very targeted there. And then there was also all employee mandated training, similar to what Nicole was mentioning. Every employee had some basic level of education as well. And we have a community of practice, which is that engagement space for people that are really interested, which has continued to see continued growth. So we kind of monitor how many people are joining, the community of practice and can just continually sharing information and learning. But again, going back, I really underestimated that stat is probably right, but I did not expect that. I really thought this is revolutionary tech, right? That's coming in. Everybody's going to just gravitate towards it and use it, and it's not. It's like every other technology pattern. There's early adopters and there's the laggards and people in between, and you really have to continually educate and bring the employee base along.
So we've heard that AI unlocks productivity, and Brian, of course, hard to measure. But with all that extra productivity, I'm curious if you're seeing or you're planning in your roadmaps what you're going to do with this extra productivity. And are you including employees in that conversation, maybe to increase adoption? It sounds like you're doing a lot with AbbVie. You actually have some vision for that. But I'm curious others how you're incorporating that into the roadmap.
Like for us, it's reinvesting. So, I mean, we definitely have seen like our overall calls to the service desk have declined by probably 50% since we implemented Moveworks. Now, is that 100% due to just Moveworks or other things happening in the environment, right? That's kind of hard to get at. But we're always looking for areas where we can improve and look for those productivity savings, and then reinvesting that back into like additional AI skills, for example. So I mentioned the AI engineer that we hired. That was basically through like just natural attrition and savings that we had over a period of a year. And it's like, we can now reinvest that into a full-time position, right? And so that's kind of one approach, I guess, that we're taking.
I would like to add to that. So that was on the customer service side. But when we look at employees, them being able to save time as Finn is able to answer their questions, what we have done is we've provided employees with tools. We provided them with the coaching. The next step is we're trying to give them with direction on how can you use this time more productively? Is it something for high value activities such as talking to customers? So one of the programs that we have is customer learning hour. This is when a lot of our product managers, digital team members spend time listening to existing customer interactions. These might be recorded calls, these might be call center calls, or these might be customer interviews that happen live where product managers are able to understand what are the customer's pain points. So that's one way we have done that. Secondly, we've looked at how can we teach cross-functional skills. For example, for product managers, we are looking at tools such as Lovable, Vercel. Can we use these tools, and can product managers visualize the mock-up so that they can have better conversations with engineering? Is that a way to spend time? That's one way we're looking at. Similarly, using Gemini and other tools, how can we enable them with effective prompt coaching? So we've hired a Gen AI coach who has built a big book of prompting. It has a lot of the prompts depending on your role. So if you're a marketing analyst and you want to do market research, it has different prompts that you could use and leverage them to have a better research experience. Similarly, if someone's on the strategy team, can they do war games and scenario analysis? So we're trying to provide our employees with not just tools to improve their productivity, but also with tools that they can use with that extra time that they get out of these tools.
On the Hearst side, what we're finding right now is that employees can be productive from day one, which was not the case. I'm a little embarrassed to say that, but it was not the case always. And I think that's because of Herbie. In addition to that, we're a corporate shared services IT team servicing all of these different business units. So we are getting requests that are related to what we do, some that are not related to what we do. So we're able to say yes more and work more quickly. We have 7 level 1 staff to support 20,000 global employees, and we're able to do that because of Herbie. It's a very, very lean team. And if we didn't have Herbie, we'd have to staff up more. And the type of work that the team is working on is interesting stuff. It's not password they're not wasting their time on password resets or cleaning up disk space, right? We've automated all of that so they can work on more complex things, which is interesting, I think. And we're seeing that in terms of growth with people staying at the company and advancing. So I see that all as good signs, although it's not hard productivity measurements, though. I'm with you on that one.
Cool. I think we have time for maybe one more quick one.
Nicole, you just mentioned about not expanding your team. So you had a hiring avoidance savings at that point, right? So I'm just wondering, like, did you guys approach it from the perspective of like looking at different tasks and automating them so you could eventually get to the point where you're more efficient and have to avoid hiring more and expanding the team further? Was that the perspective you guys approached it with, or was it something different?
The perspective was we are not getting, I'll be completely transparent, we're not getting additional funding or additional headcount, right? So how can we take the people that we have really smart people. How can we take their time and maximize the value of their time and set them up for success in the organization, and also set the bot up for success in the organization. So everybody's doing what they're good at. Getting back to that business case and use case, the bot's great at resetting passwords. Not the best use of someone's time that is highly motivated and wants to be at the company and wants to interact with people and go to someone's desk and help them solve complex problems. So it's really finding the right solution for the problem.
Amazing.
That's almost an answer to the previous question too. I mean, that's kind of what I see, right? It's like, okay, everybody sees that there is higher productivity from these tools. There's no doubt. I have a lot less busy, mundane work in my job, right? So I think right now there's pressures, to do more with the same, right? And then we'll have to see what it means for the future. But a place like AbbVie, right? There's always the notion, hey, we would love to be able to run more clinical trials than we currently are, right? So if we can make those people more efficient and we can run more clinical trials, that's absolutely what we'd like to do with that productivity.
Hi, I think I have a little bit of a different problem. How do you rein in the promise of AI where you have executives running around, this thing's going to cure cancer, it's going to walk the dog. Meanwhile, we signed the contract 3 weeks ago and, we don't have any data, right? Or, whatever the case may be, I think setting expectations and just adding some reality to the roadmap, that's I think, challenge we're facing. So, thank you.
You work for AstraZeneca, right?
JP Morgan.
Oh, JP Morgan. Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, then I can't answer this
I was
question.
going to say,
I'm kidding.
who wants to take it? I mean, I would say to educate them and if that means that you or someone on your team educates them, or throw some money and get somebody knowledgeable in AI from the outside to educate them. But bringing it back to the use cases, here is a use case that AI is perfect for, and this works in our organization. You might be able to get funding for it. Here's a use case that we're not quite there yet, but in the future we'll get there, and here's why. Here are the breaks in the solution if you try to use AI. So like real world examples, and sometimes I find that it's best to bring somebody external along to kind of have them hear you.
At AbbVie, we almost have the reverse. We're a little bit of a doubting Thomas. We're up there in Illinois and it's cold and life sucks. So it's and it goes in waves, right? And then like some pharma CEOs are very active on LinkedIn and they feel like it's very big part of their strategy. We just a little bit of Midwest conservatism, and so we have less with the over promise, I think, at our companies culturally.
I guess I feel your pain, or no, it's definitely real. I don't know if I have a good answer or solution, but for you, unfortunately. But I think that there is a perception that building an agent is like, oh, this is easy. It should take 5 minutes. And we have a colleague, who came up with a great phrase that I will repeat so you can reuse it. Is that it's really easy to build an agent. It is really hard to build a good agent. And that has really resonated with me as a phrase, and it is being repeated over and over as an educational tool, because it is not necessarily easy just to build good technology. And yes, AI can help accelerate a lot of things, but there's still like an art and a science to this, and making sure the data is where it needs to be, to get the results you want and things like that. So I think that will probably come over time, but it's a great question.
Amazing. the interaction in these questions is the reason that we put this event on every year, is because you all are early adopters in this technology, and we're trying to figure this out together in terms of how to set the expectations and how to push the limits as well, how to drive to the outcomes of everything that this tech can do. And the conversation that we're having in a few years may look very different from now, but we can absolutely continue the conversation in our reception, which is starting now. Thank you for coming, and thank you to our panelists for your participation.